Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. Good fight for the English super-welterweight title. Took place over at the Indigo O2. I've never seen boxing there. I've only ever seen like music gigs there, but it looks like a decent enough arena. I know it quite well. But yeah, it was a draw between Bilal Fawaz, who many people thought won, and Junaid Bostan. And Bostan was undefeated in 10. He had 8 KOs, 22-year-old fella from Yorkshire, Rotherham. And he fought Bilal Fawaz, who came in with 9 wins and 1 defeat, 3 KOs in the wins column. His defeat was back in 2022. He lost to an undefeated fighter I've never even heard of yet, Ayub Zakari. I've no idea who this is, but anyway, he lost. It was a 4-rounder, so no big deal. You lose a 4-rounder. You only got to suffer a knockdown, and suddenly you're behind the 8 ball as far as the 4-rounders are concerned. But this was a right old scrap for an English title, and again, this was on a next gen show, small hall sort of card, I suppose you'd call it, but this would have been a great headline. I mean, it wasn't the headline. I think it was a chief support. But Bostan he's the matchroom fighter, and he came in with the reputation of being more skillful. Like I say, he's a young man, 22. Bilal Fawaz is 36. Quite an impressive backstory. I think he's originally from Nigeria. He came over to Britain many years ago as a refugee. No one gave him anything. He battled his way up to the top. And over the 10 rounds, because of course English title fights are 10, not 12 rounds, I got the impression that Fawaz had edged it. Put it this way, if it had been a 12-rounder, I think Fawaz would probably have got it. It did have the air of, even though Fawaz looked slightly smaller in stature, he seemed physically stronger than Bostan, who doesn't look to me like he's got his man strength. He doesn't look to me like he's really fully filled out. And he does have some good skills, Bostan. But Fawaz was coming forward from the word go with a very, very high guard. I mean, and he was marching forward, not edging forward, marching forward. And from the word go, putting pressure on Bostan, who, to start with, looked like he could handle it. He looked like he could, sort of slip and slide his way through the rounds, landing the cleaner punches. But the pressure, of course, as we know, isn't just physical, it's mental. And I think this was a real test for Bostan, who I don't think he'd been beyond 8 rounds. He'd done a couple of 8-rounders 18 months, 2 years ago, roughly. But this was his first 10-rounder. And I got the impression that maybe that was on his mind, because gradually Fawaz marching forward and really letting his hands go. He was very, very aggressive when he got in punching range. He wasn't firing singles, and he wasn't particularly concerned at what was coming back at him. But in fairness, for the first half of the fight, Bostan did handle it relatively well. You could tell that it was almost like one of those fights where you thought one guy's winning the rounds, but the other guy's kind of winning the fight. You get the feeling that this is going to be a distance fight. And even though Bostan was winning the rounds, there was a sort of ominous air that Fawaz was going to get close and really, really ask serious questions of Bostan. And in the 7th round, Fawaz absolutely battered Bostan. I mean, this was the turning point. This is why I say if it had been a 12-rounder, Fawaz would probably have stopped him, to be honest with you. But in fairness to Bostan, after that hellish 7th round, he did gather his boxing a little bit more, and was still landing some good punches, but they were more like individuals, whereas Fawaz was coming forward, and like I say, when he got in the zone, he was letting clusters go, and they weren't all landing, but he was hitting Bostan with a disturbing amount of clean punches. Bostan, he's only 22, he's a young man, he's still a work in progress, but he's got to shore up that defensively. He's a little bit too upright, and there were too many gaps. He's got that sort of, he's got a guard where I always think punches can come around the corners. Because if you've got your guard is like that, and there's gaps there, It's almost as bad. It gives you a false sense of security, at least if you're one of those fighters. I think I saw Maisie Rose Courtney on the undercard, and she was hanging her left hand sort of low. She's an orthodox fighter, kind of like Carl Frotz used to. And of course, you think, well, that's, you're exposed. But if your hand's down there, you know that this is exposed, so you're gonna have that on your mind. Whereas if you have that sort of wide guard, long guard, whatever you want to call it, there's still gaps around the corner where the hooks can come. And it did seem to me like Fawaz was able to land quite a few on Bostan. Boston's punches were straighter, cleaner, but there were fewer of them. And then in the 10th round, my God, Fawaz really went after him, and from the word go was ragdolling him. That's the expression, ragdolling him. Again, it was a case of a man of 36 looking like he had his physical strength, and a much younger man, 22 years old, nowhere near his prime, just didn't have the strength to hold the guy off. Well, it was a split draw. It was Kieran McCann who had Fawaz 97-93 ahead, 96-94 for Bostan, and I think it was Mark Bates at it 95-95. I don't mind a draw. If you put a gun to my head, I would probably say that Fawaz edged it 96-94. Eddie Hearn had that opinion as well. Fair play to Eddie Hearn. He's Boston's promoter. But the two fighters had a very heated discussion afterwards. It didn't get disrespectful, but it did. They were having a go at each other. Fawaz said, I took your spirit away, and Bostan said, no one can take my spirit away. And you were raised in, even though you weren't born in London, you spent most of your time here. We're in London now. Get me back to Sheffield, and I'll show you what I'm really made of. And he did say, this is a poor performance, Boston. He did admit it. Fawaz probably fought as well as he possibly can in this fight. I haven't seen a great deal of him. I have seen him before, but I haven't seen a great deal of him. This looked like a jump up in class for him anyway. Bostan, I think there's room for improvement. So I think if Bostan can learn from this fight, well, he will learn from it. There's no doubt about that. But if he can study the fight, work on his defence as well. He now knows he can do 10 rounds under severe pressure. So that box has been ticked, and he showed some good. He showed some guts. I don't agree with Fawaz that he lost spirit. I think he lost his shape, and I think Bostan was at times looked a bit, like I say, ragged. But that's all experience. That's all. He now knows what he's got to do to be better, and no doubt he will go back with his team and they will work on that. But very interesting fight because they were so contrasting. 22-year-old prospect, regarded as having good boxing skills, bit slick, against a really tough 36-year-old. Nothing fancy about him. Definitely a guy who'll put pressure on you from the word go. And one of those guys who says, if you're going to beat me, fair enough, but my God, you're going to have to go through hell to do it. Eddie Hearn immediately afterwards says this has got to be a rematch. We're going to have this fight next. I hope both guys get well paid for the rematch because this could quite easily headline another of these next-gen shows. It's a very, very good fight. But did you see it? It was on DAZN. Let me know what you thought. Let me know who you think won and why you think they won. All right. I appreciate your time as always. Please hit the subscribe button if you're new because, we want to build the channel up and it takes you a second and costs nothing. And also if you could hit the like button as well. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, as always, and bye for now.